What is up, everybody? It's your boy R2, and today I'm going to try to break down and discuss all the recent information leaked out from Sony in regards to the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. And if you didn't know already, Sony was hacked and it leaked out tons of information, tons of emails, and everything regarding movies, regarding their franchise, how they feel about the company. So it's all interesting and it's all really sketchy, but today I'm going to talk about the Amazing Spider-Man and all the news we've been getting out lately and the craziness that's been happening. But to start off, Marvel Studios and Sony Pictures Entertainment have had discussions about bringing Spider-Man into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In an email, Sony Motion Pictures chief Amy Pascal talks about a potential scenario that would have Marvel produce a new Spider-Man trilogy, but Sony will still have creative control, marketing, and distribution. In a separate email, Amy Pascal also talks that Marvel wanted to include Spider-Man in Captain America Civil War. As of now, the Captain America 3 script is finished, but there is no Spider-Man in it. But if a deal is created or is reached, then they would write him in to have at least a cameo in Captain America Civil War. Now, just to go off to give my quick thoughts on that, I think we all really knew that Marvel has had discussions with Sony, and everyone actually really knew that, but to think that they actually are, because we all assumed, oh, they probably did, but to actually in a way confirm that they have had talks about having Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The only thing I don't like is that Marvel Studios would essentially create 3 movies just with their name on it, but Sony will have creative control, they would market the movie, and they would distribute the movie. Sony is the reason that Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 failed, and also Spider-Man 3, the original Spider-Man films. That's why they failed. That's why they didn't have the best recognition, because Sony went in there, stick their greedy little dirty hands in it and messed it all up. Andrew Garfield even has some stuff to say about that, but I'll get to him later on. Now, if a deal is made with Sony, then Marvel would scrap the Sony Spider-Man universe and recast Andrew Garfield. Marvel wants to obtain complete creative control and start on a clean slate. Obviously, they would cast a brand new actor as Peter Parker. Now, what they're saying right now is that basically Marvel planned to wipe the slate clean with Sony's Amazing Spider-Man universe with a full new cast. They want to keep away from the romance and drama. They believe romance has been played out for over 5 installments already, which is true, and I've been saying that for a while, that Spider-Mans are just like romance films with action. And Marvel believes Spider-Man's origin is well-trodden territory. Any new Spider-Man movie in this new deal would begin with Peter Parker already leading a dual life as Spider-Man. Spider-Man making his debut in Captain America Civil War would have served as the character's introduction to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Marvel's main plan is to bring the focus back as Spider-Man the superhero, bringing the character back to his true roots, a teenager fighting to balance his dual life as a superhero, issues that were brought to life well in the original 2004 Spider-Man 2 film, which to many people, Spider-Man 2 is probably the best Spider-Man movie out there, which I could agree with them because I loved those movies as a kid growing up. And I even liked Spider-Man 3, which is my guilty pleasure, I would have to say. But that's all very interesting, you know, like, I think that would be great. I think Marvel is doing it right, that they would start Spider-Man already, hey, I'm Spider-Man, I'm Peter Parker, I'm a nerd, I live a separate life, and stuff like that. I think that would really work well. And as for casting new Peter Parker, I'm all for Logan Lerman to be casted as Peter Parker. But he's a little bit on the 20s, I believe he's 22, and he'll be 23 later on in the summer of next year. So if they try to fit him in, he'll be a relatively young actor, not in the 30s, but he'd be in the mid-20s by the time he's making his own Spider-Man films. But that's what I want. I want Logan Lerman. There could be other actors that I haven't seen that I'll be like, oh man, I want him as Peter Parker. But if you have any ideas, please let me know down below. Now, continuing on, they would also stop Sony's plans for spin-off films that include the Aunt May solo film and a spin-off that was going to be led by female Spider-Man characters. Now that's interesting because if you remember the rumor of the Spider-Man female characters, they were saying they were gonna have Black Cat, Spider-Woman even. So that was all gonna be really weird. And the Aunt May solo film was gonna be like a detective story of a younger Aunt May, and it was gonna be like Agent Carter and something like that. But I was like, no, we don't need an Aunt May film. Come on, Sony, what is up with you? And they were actually planning an Aunt May film. That's the funny part, that they were going to go in production and everything with the Aunt May solo film, which was gonna be horrible. But who knows? It could have been pretty great, you know, a detective spy story. I don't know, but moving on. As for the Sinister Six movie, it is said that Venom or Carnage are being looked at for the villain of the movie, which is pretty awesome. I think that would be a pretty awesome Sinister Six movie, but it's Sony, so they wouldn't do it quite justice. And that the black suit Spider-Man may possibly joining them, so that would be awesome, seeing Spider-Man in a black costume, which we did see in Spider-Man 3, but I'm guessing that didn't work out well, because I thought that was pretty funny. I thought that black costume was awesome. That was my first introduction to the black Venom costume, and I thought, this is amazing, this is the best thing ever. But, you know, they're obviously gonna dive in to say, okay, this is how Spidey got his costume, not full blown, oh, I like black now, and I just want to wear black on my costume because I'm mourning Gwen Stacy. Or that, I think that's how they would probably do it, is like, I'm gonna wear all black in memoriam to Gwen Stacy, or something like that. I don't know. They would probably make up something like that, but I don't know. They would probably go with the Venom, but I don't get it, because Venom kind of has to be attached to Spider-Man in order for Spider-Man to have that black costume. So I don't know how Venom and Carnage would be the villains. The more reasonable one would be Carnage as the villain, because then you can have Spider-Man with the black costume, and then eventually Venom can go travel off and go away, or Spider-Man can take him off, and then that's when you have Venom and Carnage versus Sinister Six and Spider-Man. But I don't know, but let me know your thoughts on that one. Now, continuing on, obviously all this would be without Andrew Garfield, because new details are suggesting that Andrew Garfield has been out of the franchise since October of this year. He's out, like, he's fired, you're bye-bye, thanks for playing, that kind of jazz. And just to go off a quote from Mashable.com, they're quoting, "It appears that Garfield may be out as Spider-Man altogether. Garfield has been praised for his performance as Peter Parker, but his critical remarks that seem to blame the studio for Amazing Spider-Man 2's tepid box office and critical reception may have annoyed the wrong people." Garfield also stood up Sony at a corporate dinner in July. Garfield's attendance was going to be mentioned by Sony's CEO Kaz Hirai, and he was supposed to sit with some top Sony executives. His absence, with less than an hour of notice, was seen as an affront and slight by the company's Tokyo bosses. As of October 2014, it looks like Garfield is out of the franchise for good, which is sad because a lot of people really liked Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker, as Spider-Man. He was a great Spider-Man, not so much Peter Parker, but he was a great Spider-Man. He was funny, he looked the part and everything. He was really good. I'm sad that Andrew Garfield is being mistreated like this by Sony, and he's just being thrown around. It's like, shut up, we don't care about your input or anything. We don't care about your freedom of speech, your opinion, anything like that. We don't care about you, man. It's just, you're fired, you didn't show up at a meeting, you didn't tell us an hour early. I could see why, because business, it's a business and it's your job to show up. It's probably in his contract, you know, you have to show up to these meetings, to this sit downs and everything like that. And talking about sit downs, they're gonna have a Spidey Summit in January that is gonna reevaluate their whole Spider-Man franchise, and that month is when they're gonna decide on what they're gonna do with the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. Are they gonna reboot it? Are they gonna soft reboot it? Are they gonna give it back to Marvel? Are they gonna make a deal with Marvel where they can still own some of the rights, as in they can get some of the revenue from the Amazing Spider-Man films? But who knows? I'm really just hopeful, and I really just don't care anymore, man. Like, Sony Pictures, that is, has done such a bad job of handling Spider-Man that I just don't care anymore. I don't care what they do anymore. If Marvel doesn't get him, yes, I'll be disappointed, but if Sony gets him and retain, I just don't care about the Spider-Man films. I went into Amazing Spider-Man 2 hoping for a great movie because I was like, yes, it's Spider-Man. This is one of my favorite heroes since I was a kid. Somewhat of a kid, but since I was a kid, he was one of my favorite heroes watching, and I loved Spider-Man, and it was awesome. Going into that movie, I was just like, this movie's alright. I mean, Nothing in the movies make you go like, oh, that's cool. It's not making me feel like a little kid inside, you know? So I'm really sad to see this all happen with Spider-Man. And I'm glad if Marvel gets them, they would go like a dark tone. Because Spider-Man is a dark character, and I would like them to go that way. Just focusing on Peter Parker and Spider-Man and his villains, and then making romance a subplot, which Marvel has said that if they do get Spider-Man, they would make romance a subplot, which is great. Romance, I just throw that out the window, like seriously, I'm done with romance in Spider-Man films. Although that's a big part because I guess teenagers, romance, something like that, you know, insecurities, crazy teenage stuff. I'm still a teenager myself, I'm 19, but you know, Spider-Man's had his time, but now he needs to mature himself. But I'm glad, I'm really glad of what Marvel's might do with him, but yet again, it might not happen. But I believe with all this stuff that's happening so far, everything that's been happening to Sony, all the hacks, all the emails, all the bad reputation they're building up right now, I think it would be justifiable for them to sell it back to Marvel. Like really, that's the best thing you can do right now. Everybody will find this out eventually. It'll be out all over the news that Sony was hacked, and this is how they feel about the franchise. This is how they feel about Sony. And eventually you're just gonna be like, we're screwed, we're done, which is sad because those are people too, you know, those are people with jobs, those are people with families, you know, they're trying to support their families, and this is some rough times right now. So it'd be sad for the companies to go under. That'll be a loss of tons and tons of jobs, which would be sad. But yet again, you know, it'd be hard to make money back if a film is so criticized, if the franchise is so criticized and it's just so bad that you're like, no, I don't care for this movie, which is sad. But I'm gonna end it in that, you know, Sony Spider-Man has been troublesome ever since Spider-Man 3 and all the way up till now. You know, Amazing Spider-Man 1, a lot of people favorite that movie too and think it's probably the best, one of the best Spider-Man films, maybe top 2 even. And Amazing Spider-Man 2, a lot of people are saying that's the worst of all the Spider-Man films ever made, which, you know, it's arguable, but it's visually it was pretty awesome. Visually it was pretty awesome, but it just had a bunch of stories, and I don't know what was wrong with that film. That film was just a cluster of crap that was thrown into there by Sony. But yes, I'm gonna end it there. Please let me know your thoughts down below. How do you feel about all this that's happening to Sony Pictures and the Spider-Man franchise? Do you want it to go back to Marvel? Do you even care? Would you mind if Sony did it right? Would you mind that it was still with Sony, but they did it right? They did it the Marvel way, if you want to say it like that. If they did it the Marvel way, but it was still part of Sony, would you enjoy it or would you be fine with that? Because right now, everybody wants it to go back to Marvel. And I'm one of those people. I wanted to go back to Marvel because just the idea of Spider-Man interacting with Iron Man, with Tony Stark, with Captain America, with Hulk, with Black Panther, with Captain Marvel, with the Inhumans, it would be so awesome to see him interact. That's probably why everybody wants him, because we want to see him interact with these superstars, you know, these great actors, you know, Thor. We want to see him interact with all these guys. So it'd be fun, you know. But please let me know your thoughts down below about Spider-Man and all this debacle, with all this fiasco that's going on. Please put your thoughts down below. And it's your boy R2 reminding you to stay nerdy, my friends.